All right, one more issue of education implication of general theories of human nature. Suppose we put forth the perennially controversial issue of sex education. So should we teach sex education? If we do include sex education in the curriculum, how do we teach it? What is the content of our sex education here? Now here I want to back up a little bit and set the stage because the issues of sex and sex's connection to love is a very fascinating set of issues in the study of human nature and human ethics and human biology. But I want to show how on that very general issue of the relationship between sex and love, or the importance of sex and love, the dualists, the reductive materialists, and the integrationists have very different views on sex, love, and their connections. And as a result of that, when they turn to educational issues, become teachers, they have very different views about whether sex education should be included, and if so, how. All right, suppose we think in terms of dualism. How are we going to think about sex, love, right, and the relationship between the two of them? Well, a standard dualist account is to say, well, sex is obviously right on the physical side of the divide here. Sex is physical. There are physiological things that go on. It's a joining of two physical bodies, and there are chemical results and biochemical results that happen as a result of that. Love, by contrast, is an emotional state. Obviously, it involves our thinking to some extent. It involves our emotions to some extent. And it can have certain sort of physical manifestations as well. But a pure dualist account will say that love is a psychological phenomenon, and at best, it's a spiritual, right, phenomenon. But if we are dualists, then we're likely to then say, well, the psychological and the physical are distinct and ultimately unrelated things, and so love and sex are distinct and should be ultimately unrelated things. If we add to that an evaluative component, the physical from a dualistic perspective is lower, it's more animalistic. That then is more likely to lead to us to have certain attitudes towards sex. We'll see sex as low, as animalistic, in more extreme cases as something that is shameful, something that we should not be engaging in. It's a kind of sin in most cases. By contrast, love, since it's a psychological phenomenon, it's a spiritual phenomenon, it's a higher phenomenon. It's a distinctively human thing, and so that is something that we should cultivate, something that we should cherish, something that we should strive for. So, from that perspective, dualistically, the ideal kind of person is going to be someone who has his or her physical appetites under control and does not engage with them, if it's at the lower animalistic side of their nature, but on the other hand is a very loving kind of person. The best kind of human relationships then are going to be relationships that are connections of spirits, a communion of souls, right, or admiring the other person for who that person is psychologically, and there won't be any sort of a physical connection between those two. The person will remain pure, right, as opposed to mixing impure sexual behavior in with love. Now, in the history of Western civilization, rightly or wrongly, that is given the label of Platonic love, Plato being one of the great dualist philosophers in the history of philosophy here. At least as his reputation stands, Plato is an advocate of the best and highest form of love being a love that is a marriage of souls, and there is no sort of physical connection between the two. We see this in explicitly religious traditions. The best kind of person is someone who has taken a vow of celibacy or a vow of chastity, that is to say, to totally eliminate the physical and sexual side of their life and to focus on love as a spiritual connection, love for other people, love for God, or whomever the appropriate object of love should be. All right, so if we then assign this the label, right, Platonic, right, love, that puts us in a position to contrast, right, the dualist approach, right, with the various other approaches here.